but the idea of performing in front of people, no thanks.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, and it's interesting that you say that you didn't, because if correct me if I'm wrong, even back when you were doing it when you were younger, you didn't enjoy it. I saw you and Dan. So when I started playing, like just like Dan saw Dubar and Dan gets on stage, and you kind of imitate what you're seeing. Truthfully, I imitated you a lot, but the way I felt the entire time that I was playing, I didn't want to be on that stage any longer than I needed to be on there. I didn't want that attention. I didn't want, and literally, it's why we were always the opening band generally, so we could get on, get off, and then I could enjoy the show. And so it's interesting to know now that the person who kind of informed my stage presence was thinking the exact same thing.
Well, that's interesting. And, it's like what I said before. I never had I never had a plan. I just wanted to be a part of something that inspired me. And when it stopped inspiring me, I didn't really want to be a part of it anymore. It's just that simple.
Is photography for you now the thing?
I don't know that I necessarily have a thing. I really do like photography, but I'm extremely finicky about it. Everything has to be just right. I think what I like is I like going somewhere where I'm where I somewhere a foreign country, somewhere where I don't speak the language, somewhere where I don't know everything there is to know about it. Hopefully, somewhere where there aren't an abundance of people, and I like to find something cool and then document it with my camera. Um, I like that. I like being in a foreign land and going to a place I've never been before and then trying to capture good light.
I do something similar. I will go, if I'm in like a foreign place, a place that I'm not used to me, that's like a movie set. And what I generally will tend to do is I make a lot of found footage, one person movies. So I go to North Carolina every so often. Depending on where I am there, I'll do that. I've done outdoor ed with the students at at the school district in Tustin that I work for. And so generally they give me my own cabin. I've made movies. So it's just interesting. It's interesting the synergy there between film and movies. And I got one more question for you, and you don't have to answer it. You could say I'll talk to you about it when you turn this off, but I gotta ask it. So and I only touch on this because you talked about it a bit with Dan. COVID, everything that's happening now, our financial system. What do you see long range happening? Because I'm fascinated to hear what your response is going to be.
Well,
if you want to give it to me while I'm recording it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to just to sort of quantify where we're at right now, there's the Omicron variant of COVID. There's, at this point in time, I think less than 100 cases of it documented in the United States. And multiple other countries have started to experience these cases. And there's currently no vaccine for that variant. And interest rates in the United States are still at zero, and the Federal Reserve is still engaged in something called quantitative easing. So just to to put it into perspective of where we are, that'll help me to say what I think could happen. So what everyone is very concerned with is inflation, and inflation happens as a result of an overheating economy and prices rising as a result of there essentially being more buyers than there are sellers. So the question is, does that continue despite there being a variant that could kill people? If the variant starts killing people and slows down the economy, you're going to be hard pressed to see that there's inflation. But there could be, and if that were to be the case, then we've got problems. We've got rare form of inflation called stagflation. That would be a problem. The other possibility is that the variant doesn't really mean anything, and that the economy, which is overheating because of the inflation we're experiencing, continues. And then what we're going to see is the Federal Reserve continue to raise interest rates, which will eventually, potentially, slow the economy down. And we're just going to have to see. So there's uncertainty right now as far as what might come out of the current dynamic. But make no mistake, the situation that we're in right now is one of an overheating economy. That's an extremely positive position to be in. The opposite of an economy that's sluggish, that's a really difficult problem to deal with. So we're in a great place. It's just a matter of what happens from here, and no one can make that prediction. No one knows.
So then, I guess my next question, I mean, because I love being able to ask you this because you're in a field that I have interest in about this. What does one do right now? Let's say if you're an investor, or I'm saying you're someone with a 401k, you're someone who pays into a pension system. Like, do you just sort of keep going and just sort of keep your eye on what's happening and try to adjust your investments accordingly?
Well, I want to be careful because I really, what I do is I advise on specific circumstances, and this goes more into the general area of
Gotcha.
things. But if I were to give any individual investment advice, it would be to, first of all, define what you're actually trying to accomplish and take ego out of it. Don't ever try to be right. Being right is useless. What you need to do is make money. And always look at the worst case scenario and take that into consideration before you even think of the best case scenario. And I believe that if a person is doing that and they're looking at whatever their investment is, a 401k or whatever else, I think what they really have to do is keep in mind their time horizon. So, if you're a 40-year-old person, you don't really need to be worried about the short term. You need to be thinking about the long term. But conversely, if you're a 62-year-old person on the verge of retirement, maybe you really need to be looking at risk and what short-term things could do to your long-term goals, which would hopefully be, retiring very soon. So, discipline is a pragmatic approach, and discipline are what always matters the most. Not things like, oh, well, I think I can make $1 zillion in Bitcoin, or I heard that such and such semiconductor is going to be the next big whatever, or I need to buy an electric vehicle stock or whatever. All that stuff is just noise. That's irrelevant. That's all ego-driven stuff that I want to have the next best thing so that I can look smart. I don't have any interest in being smart. I just want to make money.